Welcome to Casa Academy Chapter 19, Part 1, where we will cover planning, zoning, and environmental hazards. Seriously, congratulations, you've officially made it to the final chapter of the course. Today, we're making a massive shift. See, historically, the government took a completely hands-off approach to how people use their land. Basically, you bought it and you built exactly what you wanted. But as communities really started to grow, we quickly realized that unplanned development just creates total chaos. So today, we are transitioning from that historical free-for-all into the modern world of regulations, planning, and zoning. These are concepts you absolutely must know to succeed.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. Breaking this complex topic down into these 5 clear modules is going to make studying for the exam incredibly efficient. We'll hit the purpose of planning, comprehensive plans and studies, zoning rules and exceptions, modern large-scale planning, and finally, environmental hazards and liability.
Section 1. The purpose of planning. Now picture a beautiful, quiet neighborhood, right? And suddenly, someone decides to build an incredibly loud, heavily polluting manufacturing plant literally right next door. Unregulated growth creates massive conflicts between neighbors, and it actually ends up increasing the cost of growth for everyone involved. To step in and solve this problem, the local government relies on something called police power. This is their authority to regulate land use in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. This concept is an absolutely critical foundation for your real estate exams. So remember, zoning is fundamentally an exercise of this specific police power.
So what exactly are planners trying to achieve with this power? Well, today, planning basically serves 4 primary purposes. They want to create an optimal social and economic environment, reduce the cost of both present and future growth, and allow the greatest number of properties to achieve their highest and best use. Now, what's really interesting about this is that last point. People so often think planning just restricts owners, but in reality, planning protects your property values by limiting incompatible land uses. It's what keeps that noisy factory far away from your backyard.
To actually make all of this happen on a daily basis, municipalities rely on local planning boards or commissions. They use some very important enforcement powers to keep our communities organized. Their authority generally covers things like site plan approval, sign control, and subdivision plat approval. It's the everyday, boots-on-the-ground work that keeps a city looking good and functioning smoothly.
Section 2. Comprehensive plans and studies.
So, we just talked about daily enforcement, but how does that build into a long-term vision? Well, one of the absolute most important tools in a planner's toolkit is the comprehensive plan, which you'll also hear called the master plan. It's a long-term blueprint that guides future growth and development within a city or county. The entire goal here is to ensure that development happens in a really coordinated, consistent manner rather than just being a bunch of random, chaotic building projects.
But that naturally raises a pretty big question, right? How in the world do planners actually predict economic growth? How on earth do they know what a city will need 20 years down the line? To build that comprehensive plan, planners have to dig into a ton of background data. They look at population studies for demographic trends, but crucially, they rely on economic-based studies to examine the actual businesses supporting the local economy.
And for your exam, you really need to firmly grasp this side-by-side comparison of how planners view those businesses. Planners divide them into 2 distinct categories. First, we have basic businesses, or export businesses. Think of a massive manufacturing plant producing goods that get shipped and sold all over the country. These businesses bring brand new money into the community from outside sources. Then, on the flip side, we have service businesses, or secondary businesses. Picture your local grocery store or a neighborhood ice cream shop. These exist primarily to serve the local residents, meaning they're just circulating existing money within the community itself. Let's put this into practice for a second. Imagine a city planner sitting at their desk, opening up Development File 960964 for a proposed commercial project. They aren't just looking at the building's architecture or design. They are meticulously evaluating exactly how this specific project will affect the area's economic base, like will it act as a basic or service business, and how it's going to influence future growth patterns around it. Every single individual file shapes that massive long-term master plan. And hey, speaking of keeping track of all these files, your verification code is 498111.
Section 3. Zoning rules and exceptions.
Okay, so once those broad planning goals are established, zoning becomes the primary tool used to actually make them a reality. The whole purpose of zoning is to protect property values and promote compatible land uses. To do this, standard zoning classifications typically fall into one of these 5 buckets: residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and public use. By drawing these rigid boundaries, a city ensures that heavy, noisy industrial zones are kept safely away from your quiet residential neighborhoods.
But think about it. What happens when the rules just don't quite fit your specific situation? Sometimes property owners have to seek relief from the existing regulations. So the crucial point here is understanding this specific difference for your test. A variance might be granted when strict application of zoning rules creates an undue hardship on the owner. And importantly, that hardship generally cannot be something you created yourself. On the other hand, a special exception or special use exception doesn't require a hardship at all. It simply allows for a departing use that is specifically permitted under certain conditional rules already outlined in the local code.
Section 4. Modern Large-Scale Planning.
Now we're shifting our focus away from individual neighborhood zoning variances and looking at massive, modern developments that can span across entire regions. Modern planning has expanded way beyond single cities. Enter developments of regional impact, commonly known as DRIs. These are large-scale projects whose effects extend well beyond a single community. Because their impact is so vast, they require a much deeper, more rigorous level of review. Think about a massive new theme park, a major transportation project, or a gigantic commercial hub. A project like that ripples across county lines, affecting traffic, the environment, and the economy for miles around.
Another huge trend in modern planning is the planned unit development, or PUD. A PUD is essentially a master planned community that smartly combines multiple land uses within a single development space. So instead of strict segregation of uses, PUDs create these really cohesive environments by mixing residential homes of varying densities right alongside parks, schools, recreational facilities, and even commercial areas. By doing this, developers can make much more efficient use of the land while creating a really vibrant, walkable community vibe.
Section 5. Environmental Hazards and Liability.
We are moving into our final module here, because land use isn't just about what you can build, it's about the very real environmental realities of where you build. In addition to traditional planning, this chapter requires you to understand the impact of flood insurance requirements, general environmental hazards, and circular regulations. And I really want to warn you as you prep for your exam. Environmental conditions drastically affect property values, development opportunities, and crucially, legal liabilities. You simply cannot evaluate a property's potential without thoroughly assessing its environmental standing.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, from basic police power and comprehensive plans all the way to zoning exceptions and environmental hazards. But if you remember just one single thing from this entire chapter, let it be this powerful quote: zoning and planning exist to balance private property rights with the needs of the broader community. The ultimate goal is orderly growth, minimizing conflicts, and preserving value for everyone. Next time you drive through your own city, take a look around. Ponder how this delicate, sometimes messy balance of individual freedom versus community harmony actually physically shapes the very streets you travel on every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and good luck on your exam.